Hello, everybody. Welcome to our 2021 kickoff event, Do Anything for Vision. I have my sidekick over here, Dr. Foster, and Allison Justice, the organizer of the event. She can pop her little head in. So thank you, Allison, for organizing this great event. She has decided this year we do something a little bit different and have some fun. And this is a kickoff event for our fundraising efforts that'll last throughout the summer. It will end on August 22. We'll remind you about that later in the program. First off, I'd like to thank our sponsors who make this event possible. Those are Mallinckrodt and Horizon Pharmaceuticals, who are our Devil Star supporters, AbbVie Pharmaceuticals, our star supporter, iPoint, our major supporter, and Braver Technology. Thank you all. As you know, the walk has been going on for about 20 years now. We've been 16 years under the Ocular Immunology Foundation, and the pandemic didn't stop us. We changed the way we do things, and nothing will waver our dedication. And I want to thank all our supporters for helping us do this and helping us to reinvent ourselves in the pandemic. And we've accomplished so much last year through your support and dedication. We had our first virtual Walk for Vision. This will be our second. We have had a coast-to-coast crash course for physicians and patients, which is now on demand. If you go to our website, uveitis.org, you can access that still. And we've had a successful virtual annual auction benefit award ceremony. And we'll do that again this year. We've had many virtual support groups, which we love because they're global. People from around the world join us. And so we're going to continue with that platform so we can capture as many people and provide support to as many people as we can. Most importantly, your support continues to help us with our mission of finding cure for ocular inflammatory disease, erasing the worldwide deficit of properly trained ocular immunologists, and providing education and emotional support for those patients afflicted with ocular inflammatory disease every day and their families. This year, we decided for our program, we're going to have 3 panels, and each panel will reflect an aspect of our mission. Throughout the program, you'll also hear from those that support and benefit from our work. And we will end with Ask Dr. Foster Q&A questions. So ask the experts. So during the event, you can send questions via the chat, and we'll do about 10 minutes of having Dr. Foster answer those after the end of the panel discussions. So now I'd like to start with our first panel. I'd like to introduce Dr. Chang and the research panel. Dr. Chang was one of our former fellows, and he's come back. He's now partner and owner of Mercy, and we're so grateful to have him. He has with him a current fellow, Ana Patricia from Puerto Rico, and a former fellow, Raj Shah, who's now down at Wake Forest. And Dr. Shah likes to mention Mercy is the fellowship, but you all know the fellowship comes out of the Ocular Immunology and Uveitis Foundation. So without further ado, welcome Dr. Chang and the panel.
There's a lot of really good companies out there that focus on how they can be successful. For us, it's rooted in a lot more than that. I was diagnosed in early college years with an autoimmune disease, and several years later with a rare disease. It really gave me a lot of motivation and the interest in being able to work on things that can help people like me.
Horizon is a rare disease biopharmaceutical company. We bring innovative therapies and patient services to those that really need them.
When I started the company over 10 years ago, we started in my living room and going to a truly global company. We have approaching 100 people in Dublin, Ireland, which is our global headquarters. We have a Washington, D.C. office, downtown Chicago, and we've also recently opened up a site in San Francisco, which is an R&D and manufacturing site. If you look when we're 5 people to 1,200 people today, it is the people that make a company successful.
At Horizon, it's critical that we hear the voice of the patient so that we may design a new patient experience. We've built out an R&D organization that is extremely talented in all areas of development.
One of the key aspects when we think about developing a new medicine is this really going to make a meaningful difference in the day-to-day lives of the patients? The greatest gifts that we can give to our patients is the gift of hope.
What makes us different is we care about the patients. It's not just a tagline. It's not kind of who we say we are, it's who we actually are and the things that we do every day.
The relationships that we have with our patients are so important. Sometimes we're the only person that a patient may have to talk to. At the end of the day, we want people to feel that they're not alone.
We are Team Johnny's Visionaries. We walk in honor of John Harrisis, a loving husband, father, and friend. For the past several years, our family and friends have walked in support of Dr. Foster and the team from OIUF as they continue to find cures of ocular inflammatory diseases and properly train ocular immunologists. We would like to say thank you and let you know
we walk for Johnny.
Thank you so much, Francis, for the introduction. This is Peter Chain. I am currently a partner at Mercy with Dr. Steve Anisi, and I have the pleasure today to tell you all a little bit about my own personal experience as a research fellow at some point in the past, and also have an opportunity to introduce you to one of the current fellows, Dr. Andrew Phillip, and also one of our very capable research coordinators, Sydney, the other coordinator, and because unfortunately cannot join us today. She's away on vacation. We miss her dearly. So anyway, my name is Peter Chain again, and I've been in Mercy practicing for since 2016, so for almost 5 years now. Back in 2008 and to 2010, for 2 years, I was a research fellow at Mercy OIUF, and those 2 years proved very instrumental in my overall career, just laying the foundation, more than laying the foundation really, because with Dr. Foster's and Mercy, I was exposed very, very early on, even before I perform my residency training, to very complex diseases that involve not just the eyes, but the entire human body. So needless to say, by the time I actually got to residency in New York City, I was already considered a star because I trained under the great Dr. Foster. Anyway, so the reason I came to Mercy was really when I was a med student back in 2007. That feels like a lifetime ago, and it was I was looking for research opportunities to kind of sort of just augment my CV, so that one day I could make myself more of a competitive candidate when it comes to application for ophthalmology residency, which has been known to be very competitive, and it's only gotten more competitive since then. So through two of my mentors at Tufts Medical School, Dr. Michael Raisman, Dr. Helen Wu, both of whom trained under Dr. Foster back in Mass Eye and Ear. Through them, I was introduced to Dr. Foster. So I remember making a trip to our Cambridge location one afternoon, and Dr. Foster was very, excuse me, proudly showing me around in this new facility of his. And he walked me around, and immediately I was pretty impressed by how nice the place looked. But little did I know what I was getting myself into. I really didn't know that much about ophthalmology in general. I certainly didn't know who Dr. Foster was. So after I started my research fellowship, I mean, right away, within a week or two, I was already sort of thrown in the fire and seeing a lot of very complex cases. And that's when I really realized, wow, this is something very special, and it's not an experience I could even dream of. And so when I started doing my fellowship in 2008 as a research fellow, I have to learn everything on the job. And I remember asking Dr. Foster, hey, how do is there a book I can read to learn how to use the microscope to examine the patient? And he said, nope, just get yourself in there and just work. Before I knew it, I was already pretty skillful at my examination, and I was just a few months into my fellowship. And I learned a lot of and just became to develop a very, I think, a good clinical acumen that I learned from Dr. Foster and his just his attitude toward disease and patients in general. So I stayed on for 2 years, and I was a chief research fellow my second year of my tenure here, and then afterwards, and during that 2 years, I was productive. I was pretty productive in terms of getting publication out. I was involved. I was doing multiple collaborative projects with co-fellows and doctors from other institutions, and I was able to publish, I think, at least a dozen papers during my first year and a half of fellowship here, and that definitely soup up my resume and help me get into a residency of my choice. So I went away, trained for a few years, did a retina surgery fellowship in Chicago, and that's when I came back and joined Dr. Foster as one of his junior partners. And I've been practicing uveitis and vitreoretinal surgery ever since. And I love every day being here. I love working with my research fellows, my research team. It's everyone's here and very motivated, and we're constantly looking for newer ways to treat patients, newer ways to diagnose patients. And without the support of the foundation, a lot of these endeavors would have been very, very difficult. I myself attended many presentations and meetings, even when I was a research fellow, and those were my first exposure to these type of national level meetings, and it was priceless. So and we're and thanks to your support and everybody's support here, we're able to continue to carry on the research objective of the foundation, and creates more publication that can showcase our experience to the world, to the ophthalmic community, how to approach patients with ocular inflammatory diseases. So without further ado, I'm gonna just pass the mic, the virtual mic, to Dr. Andrew Phillip, and we'll let Drew introduce himself a little bit, and also if Drew can tell us what kind of projects you're currently involved in. Drew just started here less than a month ago, so he's still relatively new, but he's already been very productive, and we're very impressed with him so far. So I'll just let Drew tell you a little bit what he's working on, what he and other fellows are working on. Drew?
Hi there. Thanks for the introduction, Dr. Chang. It's great to speak to all of y'all. My name is Dr. Andrew Phillip. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio originally. And as Dr. Chang said, I'm fairly new to the Mercy family. I've been here just over a month, but have already been jumping into the deep end in terms of research. One of the things I think is so special about the research that is done here at Mercy, and that I'm able to take part in and lead in some ways, is that we are such a centralized hub of such specialized care, and that we see rare diseases that, back home in Cincinnati, I had heard of 1 or 2 patients ever, coming through our clinic having, and we have several hundred of them here. So that allows us the unique opportunity to be able to study these rare ocular inflammatory diseases in much greater detail than a lot of other places throughout the country, and really lets us stay on the cutting edge of figuring out new ways to treat these diseases and to better understand them. Some of the things that we're doing right now, we're currently working on constructing a database of patients with intermediate uveitis. As of now, it's looking like it could possibly be one of the largest databases of patients that we know of. It'll be at least several hundred, possibly close to 1,000. And with that database, we will be able to better understand the natural progression of intermediate uveitis, who gets it, what treatments do they respond best to, and from that, we'll be able to put those what we've found to work and what has worked best through this project into actual clinical practice with our patients and disseminate this knowledge to the rest of the uveitis community. We're also working on a flow cytometry study looking at the actual mechanism of how these immunomodulatory therapies work when we treat patients with ocular inflammatory disease. So we're looking at a specific kind of immune cell to see how its levels respond to use of these immunomodulatory medications in ocular inflammatory disease. That's something that no one has looked at before, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to find something new and unique with that. And that's just a few of the things that I'm working on along with the co-fellows here, but there's something new coming up every day. The ideas that are coming forward from the fellows, the attendings, and the research coordinators here are voluminous and innumerable. So.
Well, thank you, Drew. Yeah, no, it's a very good overview. And like I said, he's been here less than a month, but he's already involved in some pretty deep project that can potentially take a lot of effort and time, but and that's what having multiple fellows here, that's the benefit of it, because they all each help each other out. Somebody might be the first author of this, but be the second author of another one and third author of another project. But at the end of the day, it's a team effort, and it's really good to see everybody sort of helping each other out, and nobody's really left alone to their own demise. Sometimes it feels like that at the end of a clinic day. You still have to crank stuff into the Excel sheet, I'm sure, but it's good to have other co-victims with you. So, all right. Well, next I'm gonna just pass the mic again to Sydney, and she's one of our research coordinators, and we can have her give us an overview of the other research projects that are going on at Mercy and OIUF.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sydney. I'm the OIUF research coordinator. I often collaborate with the doctors and research fellows to help develop and write manuscripts. Through retrospective chart reviews mostly, we're able to collect data that helps answer many of the questions that the fellows have, which are quite numerous, eventually turning it into a fully developed manuscript. In addition to working on sponsor-funded trials through Mercy, I also work on research trials that are funded through OIUF, usually through protocol development or screening of patients to find potential candidates for our study. Once a candidate is screened and enrolled in the study, myself and the research manager, Ambika, who Dr. Chang mentioned earlier, will follow the patient through all of their study visits, assisting the doctors, as well as collecting any and all necessary information and tests that we would need for that study.
Yeah, and needless to say, I mean, I used to not pay a lot of attention to this, but recently I've had working with Sid and Ambika, I actually come across more sort of budgetary spreadsheet, and I realized how much it costs. It really adds up very quickly, just even to do a in-house fellow project. It's anything that's more than a chart review. I mean, chart review, you log on and you scroll through. I mean, you know, the fellows, obviously the time spent is tremendous, but it doesn't cost anything really monetary speaking. But anything more than a retrospective chart review, anything that requires sort of randomization or prospective, some sort of long-term follow-up, it costs a lot of money, and it's just you know, paying for all the personnel that's involved, paying for the testing, the medication that's involved for the particular study. It's amazing how quickly things can add up, and you're talking about not just 2 or 3 patients enrollment, you're talking about 10, 15, 20 patients. So and even just getting a internal review board, an IRB review, that costs money too. So everything really adds up very quickly, and I used to not really realize it because I was sort of just a fellow working away, but then now, you know, it's amazing how much work goes in, and actually making sure we're not wasting money either, and we want to make sure the funding we receive from the generous donors to the OIUF are properly, appropriately expensed, and where it goes to where it's supposed to go. So it's pretty impressive how you know, how things can, how much effort and energy, time and money can take, and it really takes a big team to sort of run the proper research center like OIUF and Mercy, and again, it's it would have been impossible without everybody that's tuning in today, or maybe your friends and family that's ever donated to OIUF. So we really appreciate your support in every form. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Marissa, and this summer I'm going to be studying for vision. As a former research coordinator with Mercy and OIUF, I saw firsthand how important our fellowship program is in training physicians from around the world in ocular immunology to erase that deficit. Now as a medical student, I have a new appreciation for the efforts of OIUF in publishing this research. Not everyone in the world is able to come and train with OIUF, but almost everyone in the world has access to the internet, and there they can find information about all of our trials and the data that we publish. This will allow for better treatment for patients with OID around the world, even if they aren't able to come and get formal training with us. I'm super thankful for all the work that OIUF has been doing to help patients with OID, and I miss you all.
I do anything for vision, because the ability to see is one of the most precious gifts that life can bring. Hello everybody, I'm Chris Collins. The amazing work this foundation has done over the years and the training has given me the gift to be able to see, and the ability to track my golf ball down the fairways and watching those birdies roll in after birdie roll in. I'll do anything for vision.
Well, hello, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for listening. And next, I'm going to introduce the educational panel, which is Dr. Nisi. He's also a former fellow. Many of you know him. He's a partner and now owner of Mercy. And again, he's going to be with Dr. Shaw, who loves to say Mercy is fellowship, but remember that comes out of the Ocular Immunology and Uveitis Foundation as part of our education mission and eradicating the worldwide deficit of ocular immunologists. So let's hear from Dr. Nisi, Dr. Shaw, and Dr. Ana Patricia Maldonado from Puerto Rico.
All right, well, thanks, Francis, for that introduction. As you guys know, I'm Dr. Steve Nisi, and I'm here with a current and former fellow to talk a little bit about how the fellowship has impacted their careers thus far. I was also a clinical fellow here at Mercy, 2010 to 2011, with Dr. Shaw. And for me, I think that it was important to come to this fellowship with this particular type, this particular direction in my career, because I think that there's no other fellowship I can think of in this world really that gives you the confidence to treat these types of diseases with as difficult a spectrum as they present. It really is amazing the ability that you and the confidence coming out of this program. So with that, I have Dr. Rajiv Shah, who's down at the University of Wake Forest. My co-fellow at the time, Dr. Shah, can you tell us how the fellowship impacted your career thus far?
Absolutely, that's a wonderful question, Steve. You know, I think the Mercy Fellowship is one of a kind. And just as you alluded to, it really has no equal in the world of ophthalmology training, and particularly for ophthalmic inflammatory disease. There's no place that gives you the same experience, both from a medical disease pathology depth versus therapies and surgery. I think there's just nothing like it with the robust training, and it's a special calling. I think that all of us who train with Dr. Foster have a unique perspective to really try to do what needs to be done to get disease under control. I think part of what makes this special is I think Dr. Foster himself is such a passionate mentor for our field, and has really created, you know, legions and legions of leaders who have taken up the call and changed the field for the better. And I think that's what unites all of us who came to Mercy, is the fact that we really want to make a dent and take on disease and to take the steps that are necessary to save vision.
Yeah, there's no better medical and surgical combination, you know, as far as, you know, training ocular immunologists, I think, anywhere. Can you also talk a little bit about how we've tried to maintain our education of other physicians through the extension of our programs and other in physician training courses?
Absolutely. So it's not just about training the next generation. I think Dr. Foster and everyone at Mercy, such as yourself and Peter, have been very generous in trying to spread these secrets. I think we don't change the world if we hoard all of our knowledge and never share it. And I think one of the things that has been great is the Crash Course series, the history of doing anterior segment conferences as well as posterior segment conferences. You've shared all the pearls and the wealth of knowledge to help make this very esoteric disease of uveitis and ocular inflammatory disease very tractable and approachable to the everyday public. And I think that passion has been really reflected in the fact that we've taken this you guys have taken this conference all across the country to get to people who don't normally have access to Boston and don't even get the exposure to inflammatory disease to understand what questions to ask and how to even approach it therapeutically. I think you've really helped revolutionize the world and fill a huge gap that none of the training programs seem to fill these days.
No, that's right. And I think the key word that you stated over and over again was passion. I don't think that can be understated, because it really does take a dedication and a passion to do what we do. Most ophthalmologists don't get into eye care to treat difficult and stubborn and horrendously bad eye inflammation. It's very difficult, and that's one of the things that we also aim to do, here at Mercy, along with the partnership that we have, the foundation, is to continue that mission that Dr. Foster had started long ago, to continue to provide the care that we do for our patients and get them the cures for these inflammatory diseases, whichever way we can. So with that being said, I have a current fellow here, Dr. Ana Patricia Maldonado, who is just about to conclude her year-long fellowship with us. And Dr. Maldonado, I was hoping if you could talk to us a little bit about your experience this year and what you've learned so far.
What can I say in like 5 minutes about the OIUF fellowship? I'll try to keep it brief, but it's just because I find it hard to find words, because it's just changed me so much for the better, as not just a clinician and future ophthalmologist, but as a person. And I can't echo enough everything Dr. Shah has said about the wealth of knowledge that's not only acquired here day to day, but then shared throughout the rest of the world through these amazing conferences and activities. So it's not only a matter of that wealth, but I felt an incredible blessing to learn how to manage patients with complicated stories and lives. A lot of the patients we see day to day that I and my co-fellows see are people who are traveling from across the world, from across the United States, to see us for a second, third, fourth, fifth opinion. So these people are emotionally drained. And I think it takes a very special kind of clinician to know how to treat them empathetically, honestly, and do what has to be done to get their disease under control. And then also admit when not much can be done. So it's been scary to see patients that are so complicated and that have so many issues, but it's been incredibly rewarding to learn how to be the best ally you can be for those people.
It truly is a unique experience when you get these people in your clinic and you help them after they've been through so much. Just today, I actually saw a new patient who has been through that type of journey where mismanagement and poor understanding of disease has caused permanent changes to vision. And the look in his eyes when I told him, we're going to save the rest of your vision. I mean, that's everything what we do, and that's why we continue to do it. What do you plan to do now after you leave here with the rest of your career, and you're going into residency now in New York soon? After that, what are your goals now?
My goals, I have to admit, they've changed so much. I thought I had this like idea of what I wanted to do. I knew as far as ophthalmology for sure, but uveitis has definitely piqued a very unique interest in me. I love how diverse, challenging, complicated, emotional it can be. So I haven't discarded that option at all. And I want to pursue that for sure when I go into ophthalmology residency. I'll be going into SUNY downstate in Brooklyn, New York. So if anybody's in the area, you know where to find me. I'll happily see you. and count the cells in your anterior chamber, now that I learned how to do it so well. And from there, I just want to, I really do want to explore this field further. There's definitely a need for it back home in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I would love to return home and practice there. There's a big exodus of medical professionals that's left after all the hurricanes and the natural disasters that everybody has heard about through the news. So I want to continue the OIUF mission of taking all this knowledge and spreading it, and screaming it from the rooftops to everywhere, including my home. So that's what I would like to do.
I mean, that's good to hear. And as we know, we always have patients who come to our center from places where they don't necessarily have someone who's been trained to do ocular immunology management, much less come through this program. So to fill the need in an area like your home, Puerto Rico, if that's where you decide to go, would be fantastic. Well welcomed. We certainly hope this is what you decide to do, because I know that you'll be excellent at it. You've gotten so good at it this year.
Thank you.
Well, with that, thank you both so much for sharing your experience along with me. I've obviously spent a lot of time with both of you, and you guys are both great doctors, and I hope that there's a lot to be gained from our discussion here for everyone else. So thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us.
Video is going.
All right, we walk for Ajay up in Acadia Park, Maine.
Hi.
Hey everyone.
Say hi, Henry.
I'm Darlene Anisi, and we exercise for vision.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. I get the pleasure of introducing myself. So I had the opportunity on Thursday to host a panel with those who have benefited and also help facilitate our support group efforts. So let's take a look at that. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the support panel. I'm Frances, as you all know. I've been hosting the event, and I'm just going to give you a little introduction into the support group at the foundation. So the support group was started in 1996. It was actually started when Dr. Foster was still at the Mass Eye and Ear Infirmary. And myself, the social worker, and another patient, Elizabeth Irvin, decided that we would start the group because we all felt the need to talk to another person who had our disease. And there were so many people in the waiting room. And we just felt like it was just like this great opportunity for us to get together and really share experiences, because outside of the waiting room, no one really knew what uveitis or ocular inflammatory disease was. And so since then, we have been a support group, and when Dr. Foster left the infirmary in 2005 and started the Ocular Immunology and Uveitis Foundation, we came over with him, and we are now, of course, and since then, under the foundation. The support group has expanded since it originally started. We have an online support group. We are now on Facebook. We have a parent, a teen, and an adult support group, both on Facebook, and we have them online. Our platform is under current transition. We're moving onto our own website, so that will be transitioning sometime this year. And I have with me today Glenn Miller and Alka Bhatt. Glenn Miller is the father of a patient. He's been active in the parent support group since it started, and I'm not really good with years, but I think it was in 1999. His daughter, Demi, who's now graduated from med school residencies and starting actually ophthalmology residency, which we're so proud of. And she has had uveitis related to juvenile rheumatoid arthritis or idiopathic arthritis like myself. And that's been, Glenn can tell you more, but it's been since around 1996 or 95, and she was a very young girl. And they started seeing Dr. Foster, and then he got involved with the support group. And Alkabat is one of our patients, and she's had uveitis since she was probably around like 5 or 6, maybe the age. And she's very involved in the support group. She's done a number of things between volunteering at walks and being very active in the teen support group and the kids support groups. She started a program where she was sending cards to kids that were having surgery. And she's one of our teen facilitators as well as our online groups. And she joins in on our Pathfinders program as well. So I'm going to speak to them, and the theme will be what they got out of the support groups and how they've been given back to the support groups and what drives them to do that and what they found so helpful from the foundation and the support that we provide. So I'll start with Glenn. Welcome, Glenn.
Hi, how are you, Francis?
Proud of Demi.
Thank you.
Starting ophthalmology residency. She's one of our star patients who went into remission, got on the right immunology medicine, and has not had cataracts or glaucoma, and is doing super well and able to graduate from med school. So tell us about your experiences with the support group early on, and then how you got involved with the parent support group and your role in that.
Well, when Demi was diagnosed and then we started treatment in 97, it was very hard because you're kind of isolated when your kid got this. We were being told a lot of different things by different doctors, and there were very few people when you're making decisions who could offer you, support or validation that you're making the right decision. And there were just so many people who, very quickly, it grew very quickly. And so I just found that the support group just gave me additional support that really was needed. We were traveling to Boston every 6 weeks, sometimes sooner, even from Philadelphia. And you would go up there and you'd be seen for a short period of time and everything looks great. But the problem was initially, before they got things under control, when you had a problem where it didn't go so great. And again, the support group, just people got on, they would offer their own, experiences, which is really helpful in dealing with all this. And, little things at that time were, gee, how do we administer this? Or, gee, my kid's, was sick. Should we continue the medication? Shouldn't we? I can remember even interacting with Francis on the page there in terms of, should we stop the methotrexate because she was sick? I mean, it was that was early telemedicine, but there were such wonderful people, and some of them are still there, who offered also not only just support, but also they became like family, because it wasn't like people would come on and you wouldn't get once or twice and they would leave. The people were all there were invested, and there are some still on there today from the early days who still check in, and it's really made things so much better. And Demi had a lot of as that support grew from like the teens and stuff, that was also a big help, because as a teenager, and Alka could really address this, how many teens have this disease and have to deal with this, appointments and medications and things that you have to do. That had to be such a helpful for somebody who's a teenager. For parents, it's just getting everybody on board, because it can be pretty scary. A lot of these drugs that were recommended, and other doctors would, the family practice doctors, somebody else, what's your kid on this for? And gee, that's so having like I said, the support of other parents made you feel a lot better about therapy. Now, when you look back, everything was, nowadays it's so much better. And everything that we were told by Dr. Foster was 1,000% correct.
And now you're able to give that information to other parents on
Oh,
the
yeah.
online groups. And you've been doing that since, I think, like it started in 1997.
Right.
To which we're grateful to.
What I also did a few times was actually get on the phone with some parents because they were really concerned about, starting at the time, methotrexate was a, widely used drugs for this by Dr. Foster, but they were concerned. So, or they wanted to know. So, we actually got on the phone and I interacted with parents directly. So I think that helped and gave other parents a way to go, because back in the late 90s, early 2000s, too many people are still being told methotrexate was, a dangerous drug and your kid shouldn't be on it. Steroid only therapy was being recommended. So by me giving them our experience and how Demi eventually, went to remission and how things worked out well, gave them, I think, confidence to, move forward with therapy. That would be sight saving.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn, so much. And now, Alka, as a patient yourself, and then as a grown adult giving back, I mean, you've done many kids support groups, talking to them. I remember you asked the expert as the expert adult, helping them to see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So why don't you tell us about your experience with support from the foundation and then your giving back in your role, providing support to others.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Francis. So for me as a uveitis patient, I think the relationship with the foundation is so personal. A lot of what Glenn said is familiar to me and actually personal because I think some of those interactions I had with his daughter. For me, the foundation really provided me both education and support. So my journey as a patient started when I was 5. At that time, the internet was not an easy way of accessing information. So we spent a number of years, similar to what Glenn described in their journey, going to doctors who weren't really comfortable with the therapies that I needed, who didn't really know enough information to provide me the care that was necessary, I think, for the first few years. And so it was hard. And I think as a young child, you are just confused and you're at the whims of what is being informed and told to you. But within a few years, I was able to my family found Mass Pioneer. Through that, we found the foundation and then continued on with the foundation support as we moved to Mercy. I think the foundation has just been so important from an emotional standpoint, similar to what Glenn referenced for him. I think, for people like me, for people like Demi, having the support groups of people to talk to who really understand the unique patient journey, what it means. No matter what you get from family and friends, there's just something unique to having someone your age or close to your age who understands that. I remember actually, Glenn, there was one time that Demi, I think, had a flare in like a middle school or early high school time period, and she actually called me on the phone. So you talk about those phone calls. I've been on the receiving end of one from Demi way back when. It was soon after we had met at one of the walks. And I mean, it worked out well, she has great care, but it was just helpful, I think, in that moment to have someone that you met through a support group who's heard that journey, who knows your story, just to know what's happening in that moment that can hold that space. Francis, I remember the pediatric conference group you also were talking about. There were kids like from the ages, I think at that point I was either like in late high school or early college. And we had kids from the age of 3, 4, like 4 and 5 who were standing up and sharing their story of when, like 6 months ago, they were diagnosed. Because we were all sharing these stories of how we realized that we had lost some vision. And to think about like some of the profoundness of a 4-year-old processing that moment with a bunch of people who understand, I could just only imagine what that would have meant for me to have gotten that early on. So I think I started coming to pediatric conferences pretty soon after they were started, and then continued on with the walks, the walk provisions in Boston. And then I actually went to school at Rutgers. So when they started in New Jersey, I would go to the Boston one in August and then the New Jersey one in October and do 2 walks in the year. So for me, the foundation has been just such a supporting experience as a patient on the emotional side, as well as I think early on when I came in to Mercy and the foundation, it was helpful to educate myself on what was going on as I was getting older and wanting to learn more. The final thing I'll say is giving back to the foundation now is just so rewarding because you get to provide that same experience for someone new coming in or looking for that same level of understanding. So I love any group that I get to moderate and continue to connect and understand the journey of any of our patients.
We're so grateful for you both. Thank you so much for helping with the panel. And thank you everybody for listening.
Welcome.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. We're back. We've switched seats because we're moving on to the question and answer with the one and only, my hero, my husband. He cured me and then he married me, Dr. Foster, world-renowned ocular immunologist. And so this is a question and answer. You can submit questions. You can go to the Q&A on the bottom of the screen if you see that, and you could submit some questions. And I'm going to read them, and Dr. Foster will be answering for us. So it's Ask the Expert. You can ask him anything about treatment, future treatments, anything that you want to know about ocular inflammatory disease. So Dr. Foster, why don't you start by telling us what are the benefits to seeing an ocular immunologist when we have an eye inflammatory disease?
Well, I wonder what sort of doctor typically sees a patient with uveitis? And the answer is it's usually a retina specialist. There aren't many ocular immunologists in the world. And in the United States, for example, there may be fewer than 100. And that might sound like a big number, but when you figure that the total population is 340 million, and that the geographic size of this country is what it is, it turns out that there are not many ocular immunologists to take care of the number of uveitis patients that exist. And so most of the uveitis gets taken care of by retina doctors. Why is that? Well, it's because nobody else wants to do it. So the young retina person gets shoveled these cases, and what do they know how to do? Steroids. And so steroids is what's done. There are huge benefits for the patient seeing an ocular immunologist, and they may have difficulty finding one. They absolutely will have to travel to find one, to go to one. There are ocular immunologists that are peppered around the country, but mostly in the major cities. So travel becomes part of the necessity of what people do to get proper care. And the benefits of seeing an ocular immunologist are that the ocular immunologist knows that the uveitis that the patient has is not just an eye problem. It's more often than not part of an overall systemic total body problem. And so trying to do the detective work to figure out what is the underlying cause of the uveitis is the first step that an immunologist will do. And that requires blood testing, extensive blood testing, to pin the tail on the donkey, so to speak, to determine that the patient has the HLA-B27 gene, or to find that the person has juvenile idiopathic arthritis-associated uveitis, even though the arthritis part has not manifested itself yet. It may manifest 5 to 10 years after the uveitis has presented. So who chooses to go into ocular immunology? It's not popular. Why is it not popular? Well, it's an awful lot like internal medicine. How many eye doctors are keen on doing that kind of thing? Not very many. They'd rather do the slick cataract operation and have the patient kissing their hands 2 weeks later because of the successful outcome. With uveitis, it may take 2 years to get to that point where the patient is extremely grateful for the work that's been done and getting them into remission. Remission is the mission after all. Chronic steroid use is a fool's game. So remission is the mission, and usually that takes immunomodulatory therapy. And we'll get to that by the by in this discussion. But the first step is the diagnostic hunt and putting out the fire, almost always with steroids. First, you might think that I'm doing double speak, but steroids do play a role in the care of the patient with uveitis. It's the only thing that'll put out a fire quickly. And it may require just steroid drops or drops and shots or drops and pills, but putting out the fire is the number one goal of the uveitis, the ocular immunologist specialist. And once the fire is put out, then the diagnostic hunt will have been accomplished. While putting out the fire, the diagnostic hunt will reveal one of the most likely culprits for having produced that eye inflammation. And then the doctor can produce a plan based on the most likely culprits for that. And that plan may involve the use of medication that's just taken by mouth, or it may involve infusions of medications, venous administration of medication. But it always involves the use of something other than steroids. Long-term steroid therapy is real retarded. It's not something to be done. It always causes trouble. There's nothing like it for putting out a fire, but it can't be done long-term without trouble. So the use of medications other than steroids are part of the long-term plan. And the thing is that how many types of eye inflammation are there? Well, it turns out there are about 85 different types, 85 different causes of eye inflammation. And of those, we can outright cure about 80 of them. Cure means that the patient's problem is in remission, and the steroids and immunomodulatory therapy can be tapered and eventually stopped. When they're in remission, we declare them to be in steroid-free remission. And when they're able to taper off the immunomodulatory therapy and are off it for 5 years, we declare them outright cured. And it's not going to come back.
Well, I think you answered the question of what the goal of immunomodulatory therapy is, and that is to be in remission off immunomodulatory therapy. So having the immune system, would you say, Dr. Foster, sort of reorient itself and stop attacking itself is the whole goal. And you find once it's done that for 2 years and been quiet, that it then can go into remission off medication.
It is. I used to, in the early days, I used to try to get patients off therapy at about the 1 year point, and that turned out to be a mistake. Relapses were common, not 100%. Some patients were cured at the end of 1 year, but many relapses would occur. And that's when I extended my model to 2 years in remission before trying to reduce the IMT or immunomodulatory therapy. 3 years is probably even better. We have some patients that have relapsed many times, and for them, I have them on the immunomodulatory therapy for 4 or 5 years before trying to withdraw the therapy completely.
Okay, and then if you can just briefly mention your infamous step-ladder approach to care, because we have 3 other questions in the Q&A, and I guess you need to lean just a little further into the speaker to people to be able to hear us really well. Now we have 4, so briefly, that infamous step-ladder approach to care that every other uveitis specialist just dreads to hear when their patients walk into their office asking about that.
It's true. It is infamous because patients hear about it and they then ask their eye doctor, when are you going to put me on the step ladder? And the eye doctor thinks, oh my God, they've heard about the Stephen Foster step ladder. I don't even know why I coined that phrase, but the step ladder is the first step on the step ladder is first and foremost steroids, like steroid eye drops. And the reason for that is because that's the only thing that can quickly put out a fire. And the eye is on fire. The eye is on fire, and you need to put the fire out. And the step 2 might be something as relatively innocuous as a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, like Advil or naproxen, Nuprin, taken by mouth twice a day. And then number 3 on the step ladder is immunomodulatory therapy. And there are a whole bunch, many different IMTs, drugs that can modify the immune system, but they're not steroids, but they can help the immune system retrain itself and learn how to behave itself without the need for immunosuppression or steroids. And there are many medications now in that group of immunomodulatory therapy. There are 2 which are actually FDA approved for treating uveitis. There didn't used to be any. And then thanks to AbbVie, Humira was FDA approved for treating uveitis. And that's one that's given by subcutaneous injection once every 2 weeks. And it helps modify the immune system so that the person's immune system doesn't see the eye tissue as being something foreign, not part of themselves, and they become tolerant to the eye tissue again and not producing inflammation when the white blood cells are roaming around and bump into the eye tissue. They stay quiet. And so those are the steps on the step ladder. Unfortunately, there are about 5 diseases that I cannot cure. And for those patients, they are on medication pretty much for life. The other 80 causes of uveitis, we can cure them. We can outright cure them. And they don't have to be on medication for life.
I guess that answers one question, which was which uveitic syndromes and ocular inflammatory disease can be completely cured with IMTs in kids and adults, and which ones need the long-term treatment.
Well, the short answer is to address the question about which ones need long-term care. And Behçet's disease is one of those. Sympathetic ophthalmia is another. And the birdshot patients can be cured, but it can sometimes take a long time to get it cured. Some of the other retinal problems, not ankylosing spondylitis, but the uveitis problems that affect the retina, Voigt-Koyanagi-Harada syndrome, and other diseases that can affect the retina often require very long-term therapy.
Thank you. And I found this an interesting question. It's from an anonymous attendee, but are fellows trained by our Ocular Immunology and Uveitis Foundation any different than those trained at other centers?
I think so. I don't know for sure, and I think that my answering the question can make me sound very arrogant, and I don't want to do that, but we do know that a lot of the other centers farm out their patients to rheumatologists and other doctors to manage the immunomodulatory therapy. The eye doctor, the uveitis specialist knew that that was the right thing to do, but they weren't comfortable, weren't confident in taking personal responsibility for doing it themselves. And so they ended up having to have some other doctor, some immunologists or rheumatologists take the responsibility for prescribing the medications and managing stuff. Then the patient has to go to two doctors every month or so, the eye doctor and the rheumatologist.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Foster. I think due to time, we had one other question about what research excites you. I think your answer would be all. and so I think we'll move along to our next part of the program, and that's our video of Ms. Army.
Walking for me is Army.
I'm at the sea to see what I can see on the sea, and I'm going to sail the sea, and I'm sailing the sea for vision, and I'm sailing it for Mia.
We're waiting for Auntie Mimi's vision.
Hi, everybody. We're back, and I'd like to thank Mia's Army and especially Andrew and Mia for all they do. They've been at this since we started, and they're just so dedicated to the foundation, to other patients, and we're so happy that they could share their video for what they're doing for vision. Now, remember, everybody, this is the kickoff event, and the event is ending on August 22nd. You can go to Rally Bound, and we encourage you all to share your pictures and your videos throughout the summer for what you're doing for vision. And please share your virtual programs with your family and friends. You can, again, access this on Rally Bound or social media. And you can share your videos of what you're doing for vision on social media. And again, you have until August 22nd to continue fundraising and doing all you can for saving vision. We have t-shirts for everybody, of course, this year. And if you raise more than or equal to $50, those t-shirts are free. Otherwise, you can purchase them for $20, and that money will go toward the Walk for Vision. You can see our new t-shirt this year, which is purple. We will be announcing prizes for the most funds raised and the best do anything for vision video and event. And those prizes are going to be Apple and Grubhub gift cards, fleece blankets, and hats. So everybody, keep it going. Let's do anything for vision. Remember, kickoff is today, June 6th, and ends on August 22nd.
Comment that I'll be answering other questions.
And Dr. Foster will answer other questions on the chat. So stay tuned, and we look forward to announcing the prizes on August 22nd. Bye, everybody.
Stay well.